Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Student Insider Podcast. I am joined, of course, once again by Alex. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. I just like your intro is always on point. It's like exactly the same, and
I just want to get the consistency going, dude. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
natural. I just kind of like I don't know. But how
yeah,
was your Christmas? It's been a month, I think, since we spoke properly. So what have you been up to?
yeah, yeah. It's been really good. It was really good actually. I had like 2 weeks off work, like the bank holidays, like they like falled perfectly, and yeah, had a decent amount of time off work, time with family, Christmas time celebrations. Yeah, good fun.
Yeah, because you got 2 weeks off, right? Because I think as student, I got like a good month off. Enough just
Oh
being like
yeah,
now when you're an adult, you only get like a week of holiday a year, like 2 weeks of holiday. Damn. But yeah, I'm glad
yeah,
you had a good time. Yeah, no,
yeah. It was
Christmas was
good.
good. Obviously I went home from London, saw some family, I only saw two friends because of COVID. And yeah, now I'm back in London and I'm starting my dissertation in a couple of days. So pretty scary stuff.
All right, cool. Should we get into the question of the week then?
Question of the week. Yeah, this is a very inconsistent. This is kind of on us, but I guess my question would be if you could have any like superpower from any like film or like series or like video game, like anything basically, what would you want to have?
Um, that's a good question. I'm not really sure. Any superpower?
You're a fan of Back to the Future, right? So maybe
Yeah,
time travel would be a
it's
cool
not.
one.
Does that count as a superpower?
I'd say so. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a time machine thing. It can just be like your own innate like ability.
What's to just be able to time travel? To be honest, that sounds pretty cool. Like a lot of time travel films I absolutely love, and shows. Like there's a show called Timeless, one of the best shows ever. Just saying. Like it doesn't get
Timeless.
it doesn't get as much clout as it should. Like it's not even like recommended on Netflix or anything. Like it's on Netflix, but it's not even recommended on there. Like
Oh,
I've never
what?
seen their recommendations. Like I watched it ages ago, like not long after it came out. Very good show. I would and yeah, Back to the Future, as you can see. Well, this is a podcast, so you guys probably can't see the poster behind me, but yeah, you know, you probably read my mind. Time travel.
Yeah, actually, yeah, because I was gonna say like time is one of the once you start looking into it and start like the shows as well, I think portray it really well. You got like the butterfly effect, right? Which is where like one
Mm,
small thing can just send like catastrophe downwards, like down
mm,
into the future or whatever. I think it's really cool. Like, but I think once you start reading into it and trying to understand it, it just gets really confusing. Would not recommend that at all.
yeah, I was
Um,
also thinking about like one's always crossed my mind is like mind reading as an interesting superpower, but
ooh.
I feel like it'll put yourself in like a I don't know. I feel like I really wouldn't want to know too much like that. I feel like it put you in too much of like you know too much. Like imagine that you just heard everyone's voice. Like that'd just be like so annoying.
Yeah, I
And
guess
like it'll
like
put you to like if you know everything someone's thinking, it'll put you into this like weird trance. So I don't know. I don't really
yeah,
want. It's one I thought about before, but like wouldn't really.
it'd be like really difficult because you'd have to like live like two lives because you'd have to think
Yeah.
like, okay, I know this and this and this about this person that they've told me, but I know everything else because I heard it through
Mm.
their like just through their like their thoughts, but I can't let them know that I know this stuff because then it's going to be
Yeah.
like really weird and it's going to
Yeah.
yeah. I think as well like a lot I can imagine a lot of people's thoughts are pretty pretty messed up at some points and I think that if you got the full brunt of that you'd kind of become really cynical I think for the kind of thoughts that people can have and they're like the passing day to day like wow why would that person ever think that and I don't
Mm.
know sounds a bit weird but no that's a cool ability to have but a very scary one I think.
Yeah. Cool. So should we? You said a lot happened. You said recently about like you like started a blog. Pretty cool. You said you've been reading
Yes,
more. Do you want to just talk about that?
yeah, so I spoke to Alex earlier about this hence why he's mentioning it but I decided to start writing articles and I'll send a link or we'll put a link in the show notes if you're interested. It's very much in its infancy. I still don't know if I'm going to stick with the name. It's kind of like a 50-50 for me.
Mm.
So I've called it Conscious Thoughts. It was something that just came to me as I was writing, like because I had the articles and the ideas and I was writing them and I was like, wait, I don't even have a title for my blog.
Yeah.
So it was very spontaneous. But it kind of so the whole like article writing thing is very uncharacteristic of me, I think. And I think that it's come as a product of me exploring kind of like philosophy, kind of like emotions, and that kind of realm of like ways of thinking.
Hmm.
And it's just exploring that kind of like area and all the literature in it that's kind of opened that interest up to me, which is why I'm writing about it, because I just think it's so fascinating. It's just like crazy the amount of like stuff that I've learned. But in terms of how like I got there in the first place, is I was, I think I've spoken about this already, but in the summer, working as a team leader, I was pretty much hit with like the full brunt of like what like responsibilities I needed to have like all the time. It was really challenging, and it basically just challenged like every single aspect of who I was. Like every day was like something different, and you had to adapt, and it was a lot. Like it was like a lot to deal with, and I suffered with imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for
I've
anyone
heard
who
of it. It's
doesn't
like,
know,
but yeah, go on. Like, I'd like know the headline basis of it. Like, I know it's like something to do with like say, like you feel like you're not confident in a certain thing. Like you feel like, well, oh, how can I teach this or do this? Like, I don't even really know it. Is that the right kind of?
yeah. So it's effectively the your view of yourself is completely different to others, and you think that no matter what you're doing, you'll never be able to reach like the expectations of others. So obviously, like as a team
Okay.
leader, I'm just constantly like, am I doing enough? And it was that thing that was always at the back of my mind, and it got me really down, like really, really down, and it opened up like a whole world of like an emotional experience that I'd never taken on board before. And I think that in part is because of the way I was living beforehand. But I'm gonna like unpack a bit of this because it kind of links into the whole like article stuff. But yeah, I just got really confused with how I was feeling, and there didn't seem to be like an answer. I was like, why am I feeling like this? There's nothing that I did that was particularly wrong. That is from my like perspective anyway. So I was like, what can I do to figure this out? Because like, as a scientist, I'm like, if I don't know something, I'll just read about it. So
Mm.
the first thing I
Yeah.
thought was like, let me just read a book. Let me read into it and just figure out what's going on. Like, so I just like looked at some, asked like around. I was like, do you know any like good like psychology books that have, changed your view of the world? And I stumbled across Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence. And that was the first book that kind of led me down this kind of like stairway into this whole like field, I guess you could call it. And it basically just kind of explained exactly how emotions work, and how, by taking control of them with your like rationality, you can prosper a lot more in life. And the whole motto of the book, or like the whole moral of it is that you get taught growing up that you have to be like academically successful, and that is all schools teach you. But there is nothing outside of like your interactions with people and your like your friends at school and your parents and people that teaches you kind of like the emotional side of that, of like the sort of intelligence, if that makes sense, like the emotional
Yeah.
intelligence, like the like having like a good emotional, like the emotional toolkit or repertoire, so that you can go forth and like prosper in the world. The kind of people that are like optimists, or people that are very hopeful, are very like a lot less likely to stumble into like depressive states, and like get overwhelmed by like people's comments and stuff. And it just seemed like so weird that all this stuff just seemed like so fundamental, like as a human being, but we just don't get
Mm.
taught that. um so yeah, it was basically just like downhill from there, like me just reading book after book, like just so intrigued by the whole thing. And yeah, I guess I can say that I just came to a lot of revelations, I guess you could call them.
What kind of like revelations did you kind of like unpack from like this, like exploring into these like books?
I think the biggest thing that I've realized is that when you're having like some sort of emotional experience, is that the first thing that you should be doing is questioning it rather than just accepting it for what it is. Is like, if I am feeling sad right now, if I just accept I'm feeling sad without actually questioning why I'm feeling sad, I'll never know why, and then never have a reason for being sad, if that makes sense. You know, it's like, if I was upset that someone said something nasty about me, for example, it's then like up to me to decide whether I want that sadness to sort of, if I want that sadness to like overtake my actions from then onwards, you know, because it's like that, realistically, that sadness I'm feeling is effectively meaningless because it's just something that someone said, you know. So it was kind of like drawing the line between which of your emotions make up part of your experience, and the ones that you want to make up part of your experience are the ones that you, and that's like, you can only do that by questioning them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so. Would you say there are like some that you like, emotions or things that happen that you should question, like, oh, why is this happening? Like, what's the cause of this? But would you say there are some things that are like, well, this had this effect, but it really doesn't make any impact on my life, so I'm just going to move on, you know?
Yeah,
I think Mark Manson
sorry.
talks a bit about that in his book. Is like, it's like, oh, I didn't really give an F about that, so why am I going to think and care about it, because it actually has no effect on my life, so I'm just going to like move on, you know?
Yeah, like exactly, that's exactly what I'm getting at here. And if you haven't read that book, we'll 100% put it in the show notes because it's a really good book. I think it's a bit vulgar in the sort of the language that the guy uses, that Mark uses, but it puts across like a really good point in a really straightforward way. So I really like the way it's written personally. But yeah, it is exactly that, and that is one of the books I read as well. And it basically just goes down to kind of understanding that you don't necessarily have to care about all of your emotions, and that they're kind of just there as a product of your experience, and it's your rationality, like the thinking part of your brain that decides what you want to do with it. So you can kind of decide whether you want to let it like overrun you and just let it get you down, or if you want to change it, or, you know, do something different with it, or just ignore it entirely. You know, obviously it's difficult to do because it's part of your brain, you can't just like surgically remove it, you know. And emotions are still important, you know. Like, I don't want to understate like just like emotions are just useless and you should question them, all of them, because some of them do have a lot of meaning, you know.
Oh yeah.
So it's a very like complex like field of thought, and it's just something that I've been exploring recently and finding a lot of interest in it.
That's pretty cool. I think I want to read more into that, 'cause I haven't really read much about it, but I do remember like it was this one point I was journaling and I like about something, and it's like I had like a massive brainwave of why like I felt a certain way about something. I was like, oh, that's why. I was like, I can't remember what it was. I remember writing it down. It was like kind of like, you know, when you have that light bulb moment about something, like you have an idea of something, or you kind of like just figure something out.
Yeah.
It was like something to do emotion related. I was just like, it just felt really, really good, like really fulfilling, just like figuring that out. And I talked about it before about how journaling can just help you figure things out. And I was actually on the topic of books. I was earlier this year I read Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. It talks a lot about like creativity and stuff, and like it links. It has another book called Show Your Work, but in this book, Steal Like an Artist, which is like one of the main principles is that like there's no original ideas, like everything's a copy of a copy, right? And it's like a really good example is you know Fight Club, right? The film.
Yes.
Yeah. Like there's one shot. It's like a classic shot from, it's in the trailer and everything. Where he's like sitting, like the main character sitting on a bus. It's just that's basically it. And that was like copied from a film from like the 60s or the 50s or whenever it was. It's like, oh, that's such a classic shot. It just copied from another film. And it's like, you know the film about Facebook, The Social Network, where he's like writing the equation on the window, copied from a different film from something else.
That actor, I can't remember his name, but he plays the blue bird from Rio, right? What's his name? The guy that plays like Zuckerberg in it. I can't remember. Oh, it's gonna annoy me.
Sorry, Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, Jesse Eisenberg. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think how everything's a copy of a copy. Like recently, like you know the show Squid Game on Netflix, right? Yeah. How Mr. Beast literally took that and just made a video doing the same thing. Like it wasn't not an original idea really. He just like got it and then copied it in his own way, and the creator was actually like thankful for it. He was like, "Thank you, it promoted the show." Because some other people do it as well. Like it kind of shows like you have to find that line between inspiration and copying, because you don't want to copy or steal someone's work. You don't want to replicate the exact same thing. Like there was examples of people that ripped off Mr. Beast videos and done exactly the same thing. That's a rip off. That's different. That's not the same as finding inspiration for something and doing, and then like using that as inspiration. But onto the point I was actually going to talk about, linking to journaling in this book, went on a massive tangent there, is that I already recently started doing this, but something called keeping a logbook. And it's like we just like write a few points of what happened in the day to be able to like look back and see what happened. Like, because journaling is nice, but it's like it's more effort. Like you have to, and like instead of like sitting there and writing like a decent amount, like you can make like 4 or 5 points, like some scribbles, like in a small book. Like I've got one here of like of like things that have happened today. Like I've just recently started it, so I don't know how I'm gonna like it, but I think so far it's I think it's interesting because I've always talked about how being able to look back is cool, and I think that's just gonna make it much easier and less like the one thing I really think about recently is less friction to do things, like things that you want to work on, or like the habits you want to build. Like the less friction, the better. Like so, on the topic of reading, like I now like I've completely removed my when I go to bed, my phone is definitely not in my room. Like 99.9% of the time, my phone is not in my room. Like because when I go to bed, it's like going to sleep. Well, I'm reading and then going to sleep. And it's like because I got my book there, I got my Kindle, my book there, and yeah, and it's just because that's not there. It's like you're priming your environment. It's like James Clear talks about that in his articles and his book. I'm not going to go into that because I've talked about it 100 times before. But yeah,
I can see because I'm definitely one of those people that would easily like sit on my phone in the mornings, and just sit there on my phone like looking through Instagram, and it can literally sometimes like I can literally sit there for hours just getting carried away. And then you realize like you got up early for nothing because you're just sat on your phone. And the same thing when you're going to sleep, you can end up staying up really late into the night and get distracted with, I mean, anything. Like if you're on YouTube, you just get recommended like you video after video, and then you just get like absolutely swarmed by it. And then next thing you know, it's like 3 a.m. I've never actually had that because I know that people do say they end up like staying up till 3 a.m. like searching up weird stuff on Google, but I've never had that experience. So maybe I will have it one day. Just to see how chaotic it is.
I have fallen down the YouTube rabbit hole many of times.
I think we all have. I think yeah, everyone
100%.
is lying if they say to you that they like don't have that thing that they just love watching or love doing. They just don't like admitting it. Like mukbang, for example, like the people that eat food like on camera, like an ASMR thing. Like like stuff like that. People don't like admit, like admitting, but they do it like religiously. But just to touch on the journaling, because you mentioned quite a few points earlier, like with like habits and yeah, quite a few different things. But with regards to journaling, I actually tried it. I did try journaling, and it was really handy because, especially at the time back then when I was sort of investigating my emotions, because I was just experiencing so many of them, with from the imposter syndrome that I mentioned. It basically just became a log of what I was thinking at the time, and then when I was in a clearer headspace, I could then go back to it and process it at a later date. And it was really helpful, but it was also really, really detrimental at the same time, I found. But I think it's because I was journaling wrong. And I was using my journal basically as a log of how I was feeling. And it basically just served as like a kind of eventually turned into an essay and then into a book about like how miserable I felt, and then looking back on it, you just think like, damn, I don't really want to be reminded of this stuff, and it didn't really help at all. And I think that's because I was doing it incredibly wrong. And when you journal, I would much like definitely recommend avoiding that train of thought and putting down the more black and white, like this is what happened, and try and keep it on a more positive note. Because I think looking back on those moments is, I think especially as well, you can be quite judgmental of yourself, I think, as well. I think the thing with journaling is to look back on the stuff you've done in the past and not be judgmental of it, because there's going to be days where you don't do the best you can, right? I think that if you are able to like observe what you do without judging yourself, because your brain's not perfect, or unfortunately, that'd be amazing if it was. No one's perfect. We have flawed biology. another thing I've picked up. So that is what I'd say. But alternatively, the articles that I've been writing have been a lot more informative for me. And when I posted my articles, I said that this is more for me, because it is. Like, the articles are basically my way of projecting my thoughts and feelings in a way that's not destructive but more productive, because I'm using it as a platform to help others and not just help myself. So I can kind of remove the negative connotations with it, because no one wants to read like pages and pages of me saying how
Yeah.
miserable I'm feeling, you know. So it kind of like shortcuts or short circuits that part of it. I mean, I'm not sure if you've had the same experience, but this is just my experience with journaling. But yeah, I just want to put that out as a warning, because that's what happened to me basically.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point there. Like, I think you have to like prime your brain a bit to think, like, instead of just maybe putting into that mind of, okay, what was the best thing that happened today, instead of just writing everything that happened, like putting that yourself into that positive like mindset, instead of just like complaining about something and like going down that spiral. I think that's a good way to like prime your brain to like to maybe even think about things that were good that you might have not even thought about in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that just breeds like a positive mindset for yourself, right? Because when you look back on those things, you're like, okay, you know, that day didn't go out great, but there were still positives in it. So my advice would be, yeah, just when you're journaling, just be optimistic as you can, and always put down everything that you think is everything that you want to look back on. Don't put down the stuff that you don't want to look back on, because as you said, like for yourself, it's a matter of having like a document or a documentary of your life effectively that you can look back on when you're older. You don't want to look back and see how miserable you were. You want to look back and see like how, you know, amazing your days were and all the amazing things that you achieved. So I would, yeah, definitely keep it optimistic as you can.
Yeah, I agree to an extent though, but I reckon if there's a meaning behind writing about something that if there's like a meaningful part of writing about something that wasn't so good, I think that can help you unpack it. Like I remember writing about things that were not good, but then being able to come to a solution by the time I finished writing about it, like writing 2-3 pages, like just like chucking out the thoughts and then being able to come to a solution.
Yeah,
like,
it's kind of like,
that's why, but you have to like be able to go through that process. Like, you can't stop halfway through writing about something because you might have not got to your solution yet, you know.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well is when you're writing down about these kind of things, it's very situational about how you're feeling about them. If you're having a bad day, you're more likely to think more negatively about things. So it's like, it really depends on when you catch those thoughts and feelings that has the biggest impact in your writing, especially, I think. But yeah, no, I definitely see that, the alternative side of it. And I think that I would definitely say that if there is something that's bothered you, you should write about it 100%, which is what I did, and it helped. But I think once you do it consistently, it just turns into a log of just pure chaos, and you know,
yeah, I
thing
think
that
it
you
takes
really want to look
practice
back
to
on.
master.
But
I think that's
100%, yeah.
practice, because like I've been journaling for 2 years, more than that. Like, not consistently, but I've it's like slowly figured out like how to, like how it works for me, you know. Like
Yeah,
that,
it doesn't have to work for
that's,
everyone, right? Like,
yeah, and some people hate it, like they absolutely hate it. Some people love it. Some people a bit of both, you know. So it's really, it's always all situational, like you say.
I think you have to have. Oh, I think I just bashed my table. I think you have to have like a certain interest in yourself and your life to journal, because I can imagine that if you're in a position where you're working a job that you don't necessarily like, or you don't think yourself as an interesting person, and you don't, you just don't have that like that relationship with your like with yourself, I guess, if that makes sense, that it can be quite difficult to write like journals, I can imagine. But I think if you take the time to start showing interest in yourself, and I mean, you know yourself better than anyone, so you might as well be your biggest fan, right? You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, exactly. But I've been thinking of more recently about like how we have like a lot of distractions around us, and like I've always like been I've always thought that like you should always like think like how can you improve your life instead of like being distracted by how, like, I don't know, it's a weird thought. It's like so for example, a lot of people get in like, you know, like a relationship with someone, like,
yeah,
and they might put a lot of their energy into that, right? And then you hear of people that they say to their partner, like they say to they say, oh, I'm nothing without you or whatever, right? I would never want to be in that situation. Like, say, I had a girlfriend, and she went, "Oh, I'm solely dependent on you." Like, I would not like that at all. I'd rather like still be single right now. Like,
Yeah.
but because like I feel like once you find someone that's happy about themselves, like I'm pretty happy about myself right now, and if you find someone that's happy about themselves as well, and you meet, it's like you kind of like vibe better, because like I wouldn't hate to be with someone that was dependent on a relationship with someone because they're not happy with themselves by themselves. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think it does. And I think it kind of links into this kind of like toxic behavior that can stem from relationships. And Mark Manson talks a lot about this in his book, basically saying that in relationship, there tends to be two types of people, the ones that like to be cared for and the ones that like caring. And basically, both of those roots are very, very self-destructive. And I think that's the thing that ends up having people being dependent on relationships without necessarily experiencing the benefits of them. Because, your partner is going to have their problems, and, they could be the kind of person that loves to share those problems and receive that help. And they get like they get like pleasure from that. But there's also the people out there that will see that someone needs that help, and then they get like a good feeling out of helping them, when in reality, well, from Mark Manson's point of view anyway, is that a good relationship is one where you both have your problems and you both tackle your own problems independently, but you support each other doing it.
That's what I was trying
A
to
bit
say.
mumbled.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's exactly what I was trying to say. I remember I must have got it from there or something, because I've read that book as well. I remember talking about it to someone, and unpacking it, and it was a while ago. So I was trying to remember what I was saying. But yeah, you've put that in very good terms. That's the kind of thing. It's just like, I think it just makes your life easier. I don't know. Like, yeah.
No, 100%. Like, I mean, people get into relationships for reasons. It makes you feel good, but you have to be.
Oh yeah.
When you're going into a relationship. I mean, I'm not one to give relationship advice. I've been like
Neither
single
am I.
for 3 years, so don't take my word on this.
Big
But
catch. Don't take ours. This is not advice. This is just two dudes talking on the internet.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you're going to go into a relationship, go into it for the right reasons, not for. Don't go in with like that thought of like desire, like or like lust, that kind of stuff. You want to go in with those like good feelings, the positive ones like love and honesty. I don't know. This sounds so cringe. I'm not one for relationships, to be honest. But I think along the lines of distractions, and this is something that I've been looking at very, very recently. And I think that in the modern world, there is so many sources of pleasure, and it becomes so easy to get distracted by them. And I think the worst one that there is, and everyone has one effectively, is a phone. Like, they're addictive as anything, and they're just like little pleasure boxes that will just give you anything that you need whenever. You can just go on the internet and find anything. You can go on YouTube and find anything. You can message anyone from across the world. It's just like constantly giving you that pleasure. So there's like, in a biological sense, there's absolutely no reason for you to never be off your phone, because it makes you feel good 24/7, right? But that's obviously not good, because then we won't achieve anything.
Yeah.
So
it's like a dopamine hit. It's like just it's like just it's taking you away from the real world, like I've been unpacking this literally this last week. I was thinking about this on Sunday, like just gone. I was thinking and it's now Thursday, and I was just literally thinking about, like, because I've talked a lot about how I've like gone a lot off social media and like kind of got rid of that distraction. And like, I have hardly spent much time on social media in the last 7 months ish, like here and there, but not much at all compared to what I used to. And I was thinking, oh, okay, that's pretty good. But then I was realizing I was watching much more much more TV and much more, many more films than I was before. Like, I kind of like replaced that. Like, I do enjoy movies a lot, but I realized that like maybe it was too more than I wanted it to be. So like, I'm currently doing like experiment where I'm just like not watching any TV for a week or however long I decide to continue it for, just to see like what do I end up doing? Like where do I put my time and energy, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like distractions are absolutely everywhere, and they serve one purpose and one purpose only: to get rid of any pain that you're experiencing. Anything negative in your life, you can just like just dose the fire in anything, like your phone,
Mm.
YouTube, like video games, gambling. Like, I mean, on the more extreme end, like drugs, but I think that's more of like a more of an extreme case. But
Mm.
it is just like it is absurdly easy to slip into those things. And as soon as you start to dip out of those like dopamine rich sources, your brain starts to lack that hit that it's used to getting. And you will subconsciously try to find another source without you even knowing. Sometimes, like you said, like you felt like you were watching more TV, and it's probably because of whatever you was getting from your phone on a biochemical basis. You simply were just replaced by um like watching TV. And the
Yeah.
good thing that you've done is that you noticed that, and that is like the biggest part of any addiction, is noticing it, because it's so
Mm.
hard to even notice that you're having it when you get so used to it. Is that you put like a barrier between yourself and that source, so that the next time your body kind of goes into autopilot, you're like, oh, I'm going to go and do that. You realize that you've put some barrier in the way, and then that gives you like a couple of seconds for that rationality to kick in and think, damn, I probably shouldn't do that. It's not a good idea.
Yeah. Like Habitica, like we talked about this before. This is such a good app.
Yes.
It's like it's a habit tracker, and like I've literally on Habitica right now. I put like so this experiment I'm doing for a week of no TV, just and so I've got a log on here. So I know if I go watch TV in like 2 hours, I know that or whatever, like in the evening, I know like okay, I don't want to do that now because I know I want to do this 1 week experiment, see what happens. Maybe do it for 2 weeks, and then like maybe probably just end up like instead of watching like however many hours I was watching a day, maybe like only at 1 hour a day or like however much I decide to do. And but yeah, I think that but this app is really good for habit tracking. Like I've got all my habits here, and it's just become since I started using it, it's been like 10 times, well, not 10 times, but just more consistent in general. Like
Yeah.
just in general things that I'm trying to like do more consistently.
Yeah, to give a bit of a background, like Habatica is basically just like a video game, but the whole basis of the game is that you progress, and winning the game basically in essence is like by picking up good, like productive habits. So it's basically just a really good way of, I mean, especially for myself, because I absolutely love video games and I have like my whole life. So it's like a great way for me to channel that love for video games and the pleasure you can get from it, and then translate that into your own personal life. Habatica was one of probably the reason that I went to the gym so consistently, because it was one of my big, like, ticking off that box on the app. And then you get that, like, you see like the little XP boost and the health or whatever. I don't know what exactly it gives you. I never really paid attention, to be honest. But every time you ticked it off and you finish that gym session, you're just like, yes, it just feels amazing.
Yeah, it's like really you get the like you start with like level 1, and you have to like it's like a video. This is like it used to be called Habit RPG or something like that. And it's like because it's like a video game. So you start with your character at level 1, and then you're like the more habits you do, the more XP you get, and you level up, and you can get more armor and more all that kind of stuff, which is it's pretty cool.
That is a really cool app, and I think it's a good way to start. Again, I think like Habatica is kind of that way where you can turn, and it kind of puts that barrier between you and your like addictions or your habits or the bad ones, right? So if you're trying to stop doing something, for example, or you're trying to do something, even you've put that like stepping stone in the way, where it's like, I have to, if I do this, I'm sacrificing my Habatica, and your poor little like adorable character is going to end up suffering.
Yeah.
In a virtual sense.
Yeah.
So it's like it kind of puts that buffer between you and whatever it is you're trying to do, and it makes you, it's either going to like stop you from doing whatever it is, or motivate you more to not do it and or do it, depending on if it's a positive or negative thing you're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. And you can create accountability, like because we set up like they call it like a party in the app. It's like you can add like your friends. That was like what 3 to 5 of us or something like that. Where it's like you create challenges, and then like or quests, they call it quests, and then like and if someone doesn't check off their daily habit, then everyone can lose their XP. So it kind of creates that accountability. It's like, oh, I need to get this done, because like it's not just I'm not just doing it for myself now I have to like do it for the other people that are here as well. So yeah, kind of creates that accountability, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because I just remember it being really funny. Like with one of our friends, I was like, "Sorry, guys, I didn't make it to the gym today," and they were like, "No, quickly go, you still have time." Yeah, no, really good app. Really would recommend it. But yeah, I guess it's like one of the, and just on the lines of addiction. But one of the things that I've like realized is that I think I just said this a minute ago as well, but there is it's just like there's just so much like abundance, like everything is just like excess these days, right? And we are like hardwired for the complete opposite. Like we as humans like have lived the majority of our lives with like nothing. We had to go and search for like, you know, food and water, but now it's like we just have to walk like 5 meters, maybe not even that, to go and get it. And I think there's just like such a stark difference where a lot of the things that would have been painful aren't painful anymore. And I think that because of that, we've in a sense become like oversensitized to it, so that when we feel pain, we're just not used to it, because we rarely ever experience it in this like world, this like modern society that we have. And I think it just makes you more and more likely to try and like extinguish that painful fire with anything, like your phone. Like I think the majority, I think it's like a plague. You can basically call it a plague. I think majority of people I know have some form of attachment to their phone. And I don't think it's anyone's fault. I just think it's like it's the natural thing to do. If you're upset about something, why would you not want to go on your phone? It makes you feel good. You know, it's like there's no other, well, there obviously are other options, but the easiest one, why would you not take it? If that makes sense.
It's like I've been thinking about, like, I'll touch upon 2 points here. Like one is like I've kept thinking about like just like getting rid of my smartphone, like to try, like yeah, like using a old like phone from like
Flip phone.
10, 15 years ago, like something like that. Like
That'd be quite
I was
funny,
looking
to be
at,
fair. Just imagine you go out and your friends are like, "What the hell is that thing?"
like I think it'd be interesting to try. Like the only reason I haven't done it yet is because of WhatsApp personally, because that's how I message most people. So I have to try to find a workaround for that. Like I know, like you remember BlackBerry, right? They only recently, like last week, they got rid of their support for the phones. Like they basically disabled their operating system.
Wait, so everyone with a BlackBerry is screwed now?
Yeah, it's like you can't. I don't think you can even make phone calls on it anymore.
Oh damn! Yeah, I guess
And like,
BlackBerry fell out of fashion pretty quickly, didn't they? As soon as iPhone came in with their new touch screens, BlackBerry was like, "Oh, we can't keep up with this."
yeah, and
So
what else was I going to talk about? I knew I'd forget the other point.
you just said that the first point was going to a flip phone. Oh, no,
okay.
I said flip phone. That wasn't me.
What was you talking about before? Just then?
The flip phone.
No, before that.
What do you mean before the flip? It's always been the flip phone. It's always flip phone.
No, what the bit you were talking about before I started talking about my 2 points.
Like addictions, like, and how the world is like full of abundance when we're supposed to be.
That's it. I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. There we go. So we were talking at the start about time travel, right?
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So the full circle here.
Yeah. So and this is a really part of why I think I'm interested in time travel, because I was like, what if I was living what it was like in the 70s or the 50s or any time where there wasn't as much advancement as in technology, just to see what it would be like. Like, what would it be like to be in that kind of society where it's like, I think people were more connected back then, because like it's kind of like technology kind of creates, I think, this sense of like fake connection. And it's like, I've met quite a few people that, only a few really, that don't use social media at all. Like I met one of my.
Be interested to meet them. I don't think I know anyone that doesn't use social media outright.
Yeah, it's like one of my mates from uni completely does not use any social media apart from Facebook to check uni events. Nothing. It's nothing. No Instagram, Snapchat, nothing. And I I remember talking a lot about philosophy with him, and it just I was like, that kind of makes sense why like they're interested in those kind of topics of thinking more deeply, because you don't have this like not spending as much time to be distracted by these devices of social media. Like it's so easy just to like do it without even really thinking about it. And I think it's like people even that are like I've spent a decent amount of time posting stuff on social media, right? And it kind of thinks, okay, why am I posting this? What's the point of it? Like, I think the stuff I've created has created value, and I did enjoy it. But I feel like there's people that just do this thing of posting for the sake of getting likes or whatever like that, and like, have they ever really thought why they're doing something? I don't know. It's kind of thing I like to question. But
yeah. No, I think if just to go back to the first point, if we were to go back to a different time when there was no internet, I think that's not even that long ago, we would suffer immensely, like so bad, like it'd be insane, because there's just so many like conveniences that would be stripped away from us, and then we'd have to like adapt to it, and it's hard to do that. It's not something that comes easily. Getting out of addictions can take weeks to months, like, and that's even on like a small scale. Like the thing is with addiction is that it's always going to be biologically instilled in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you get over addictions is by like adapting. It's kind of like you have this connection in your brain that's always going to be there from the addiction, but you can just get ones that go around it instead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like how people get out of addictions when you're an adult, because your brain isn't as plastic when you get to adulthood, so it's permanently there. You hear about stories of like ex like heroin addicts, they go into surgery and get given morphine, and then boom, like because of that hit, that nerve in their brain that's been there all those like decades suddenly just gets like lit up again, and then you're back to full-blown addiction. So it's kind of scary stuff. And then to touch on the point of how sort of toxic, I guess you could say, social media is, I would 100% agree that social media is the negatives on a personal level way outweigh the benefits, like 100%. And what you mentioned about people having, posting for no reason, like, what am I posting for? It basically just becomes, it's like a very toxic thing that can happen to people, and it's where they sort of see themselves online as someone completely different from their real self. People can show the best sides of themselves online and put all this like amazing stuff online about themselves, but in reality, that gym guy that goes to that looks swole and goes to the gym like 7 days a week probably has a lot of suffering that he's not showing, like behind the scenes.
Because social media is not truth. Like it's like there was this really interesting video that I saw on, sorry to interrupt if you were saying
no.
It was like there's a channel called Colin and Samir. They dive into like creators, and there was like one of the TikTok creators, like one of the biggest on the platform, and like basically a teenager, and he's like been put as like this massive schedule to do all this content and interviews and business meetings and all that, and they're basically a teenager, and they're trying to figure out like what they want to do with their life, and they've just had this whole like all this attention put on them, like they like without even really knowing who they are, they're trying to figure out who they are, and they've got all this stuff, like people like just full of comments and stuff, people like filling their inboxes or whatever, and they're still trying to figure out who the hell they are, and like that's one part of me is kind of grateful my YouTube channel didn't blow up yet, because I feel like I've figured out so much even with it not blowing up, and I feel like I would have like I've figured out stuff that like that I've enjoyed doing, or like stuff about myself by not like I've taken like 7 months of making any YouTube videos, and I feel like I've figured out so much. It's really weird. Like a lot of advice out there is, just put stuff out there and you figure it out along the way, and I feel like I've figured out so much in this span of not creating anything. And like if I do start making videos again, I'd probably be soon, because I kind of like have kind of figured out my stance, and like because I do enjoy making videos. But there's one point I want to touch upon is like, okay, I don't spend a lot of time on social media anymore, So how can I post on social media, right? Because I'm kind of like posting on something that I don't spend time on. But like as an individual, you can't, you don't have any impact about what other people do and their view on social media, how much time they spend on it, right? So like that's like out of my control. And so like if I only spend an hour a week on the platform, or I don't know, 5 hours a week or whatever, and but I'm posting something that I feel like will help other people, then does that make it like, do I think that's okay to do? It's like, I don't know. It's one of the things I've always been thinking, like, it's been a massive distraction, but I enjoy it as well. And I like learning about it and like having that impact on people, because you can like reach so many people from it. But they, like you say, they have that positives, but they also have their drawbacks. It's like, but you can't use like, it's a weird stance to like try and figure out, you know?
I think what we're trying to get across here is like, we're not trying to like trash social media. Like social media is a good thing, and it can be a good thing, but you have to be so careful, you know, like,
oh yeah,
the majority, I think I couldn't even maybe name a reason, but the majority of social media, being on social media, whatever you going on there is detrimental to yourself for the most part, but what you can do for others can be good, but majority of the time it's just going to be detrimental, and it's just a cycle of, you know, like you were saying, the, you know, by posting these videos and just trying to fit this character, I guess, that you've made on your YouTube channel, you kind of restrict yourself in a more, I guess this is more towards like content creators than like social media, but in the same sense of what we mentioned a minute ago, you've kind of drawn that like distinction between, okay, this is my YouTube self, this is who I need to be, and then at that point you've completely shut yourself off from, you know, being different, because you're worried that if you change at all, then, you know, your fans or, you know, people that are watching are going to think differently of you, which obviously is not the case at all. And what you really need to do is just make sure that that person that you're putting online is always you. And, you know, by not
100%.
by not doing that, if you put on this fake person, you know, you're going to make yourself, like this real life, you just feel like absolute crap, because you know, I'm not this person that looks good in every picture and does all this amazing stuff all the time, because, you know, no one can do that. That's impossible. And
exactly,
from like a perspective of someone else, they're going to look at that post, see how amazing this online version of you is, think it's actually you, and then they're going to feel terrible. So it is just like a vicious like cycle. And I think that, yeah, you know, just for your own case, you know, you don't have to use, as long as you're using social media in like a good way, and you're not going on there to, you know, say how amazing you are, you're just going on there to help people and just show them that social media isn't as social as you think it is.
oh yeah, I remember we talked about that before, and I 100% agree. Like, it's not social media, it's like media.
Yeah, like Alex, you haven't been like on social media for as long as I can remember now. Like you've been like an avid, like, I am, social media is toxic, like I'm gonna just do my own thing and use social media how I want to use social media, not let social media use me. And, you know, I mean, unless you can say anything different from what I've seen, you don't seem to have had any communication issues, or, I mean, social media is for communication. It doesn't sound like you've had any issues with communication, keeping up with friends and whatever. I mean, unless you've got anything different, but that's just what I get from the whole thing. So
yeah, I feel like I've communicated more, you know, like my communication has increased because I've like, the time has been taken away from these platforms. So it's like more intention has gone into like meeting up with other people that maybe I just like, it just kind of like got put on the back burner before, you know, like, because it's like just your mind was distracted.
I think that is the biggest thing that worries people, is like, how can I live without social media? How can I live without messaging my friends? And that's not what it is at all. Like, you can keep social media, but like the whole act of deleting them is just putting yourself in that position where next time that you feel like a compulsion to go on there for no reason that you can think of, you're just like, why aren't I on my phone right now? You're out with your friends or whatever, you get bored, I should go on my phone. By putting that deleting of the apps, like getting them off your phone, and putting that barrier in the way, it kind of gives you that thinking time to think, oh, I deleted social media earlier because before me was telling me that now's not a good idea to be on my phone. So it's just a matter of shifting yourself out of that mindset of, you know, letting all these big like companies like Google and Apple just manipulate you into earning the money and actually using social media for the good that it has.
I feel like we've touched on this topic of social media a lot, and
I think it's
like
just
in
like
previous episodes,
our.
I think it's interesting how we keep coming back to it. It's just interesting.
I think the thing is that it just seems like such a big topic. Like as students, especially, like it's just something that you have to have. Like as a student, it's just one of those like fundamental things. Like as you said, like your friend that doesn't use social media but still has to have Facebook, otherwise they have no idea what events are going on. It is just important, and I think that because of that, because of the importance of it, it's like you have to have it. And then because you have to have it, there's no barrier between you and just falling into the trap of like, big media companies just making money off you and getting you addicted. So,
Yeah.
and
But I reckon you can function without them though.
with addictions, it's like, I think you mentioned it earlier, like it's so easy just to feel like you have to go back to it. There's literally like there's 4 billion years of evolution like forcing you to go back to whatever that thing is, because it in your mind it's basically telling you like that thing makes me feel good, so I should probably do it. But the big thing is, and the reason that we put those barriers into place is so that that rational part of your brain, that thing, that part of you that does all the thinking and all the smart decisions for the most part, it can get in the way and be like, no, that's a terrible idea, let's not do this anymore. I've been sitting in my room on my phone for the last 2 hours and I do this consistently every day. It's time to do something a bit better than this. Basically.
Yeah, it's we're all in a work. How I like to see it is like just one thing at a time. It's like it's a work in progress. Like if you try and improve like a tiny bit each day, it's like I'm not gonna sit there and complain that I've like done this bad habit of like, but I'm still trying to improve. Like that mindset is I'm improving, like because like I'm working on getting better. Even if I do something that maybe I think is not the best, I know I've made improvements. Like I was thinking about like reading. Like reading is a habit I've been working on. I remember I read maybe like 5 or 6 books last year, not much at all, but it was like maybe 300% more than I read the year before, right? So I was just thinking, I'm just not I only read 6 when I wanted to read 12 like one a month. It was like, I've like read so many more. Like I'm like done 300% more. Like that's a big improvement,
I think that's just
that's putting that. It's putting your positive mindset into it,
Yeah, that is literally optimism, right? That is what being optimistic is. It's like thinking of the positives of things, and that can get you. Or I think it is shown like the optimists generally live happier lives and are more successful. Apparently, people that are more optimistic. So it's not. I mean, sure, you can set yourself up for failure by being optimistic, but if you're still optimistic after you fail, then you'll try again, and eventually you will most likely get there. But yeah, interesting.
Cool. All right. I think I don't know how long we'll be talking for, but I feel like it's been an hour.
It's probably been around an hour. I don't know if now's a good time to shut off the show, but
I think we can wrap this up now. I feel like the words I've typed up for the title of this episode, which you might call it or not, is reading, writing, and unlocking wisdom. We might change it, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think wisdom's a bit of a tricky word for me. One thing I was going to ask actually just before we wrap up is that earlier you mentioned like that you had been reading more and you got yourself into the habit of it. Was it something that when you were doing this, trying to get into this habit of reading, what did you like? Did you replace it with something else, or was it something that you just started doing and then enjoyed it?
Very good question, actually, because I actually I forgot to talk about that because I was actually across my mind and I forgot. So my phone, right? My phone used to live on my bedside cabinet, right? And then I used to go on it before I go to sleep. Now my book lives on my bedside cabinet and my Kindle lives on my bedside cabinet. That's what replaced my phone, and that's how I don't spend like 3 hours on my 2 or 3 hours on my phone before I go to sleep, because it's not there anymore. It's removed that bad habit away, and I've replaced it. It was both. I wanted to replace going on my phone, plus wanted to start to read. And they said, like they say, the best way to get rid of a bad habit or an addiction is to replace it with something else. That's exactly what
get addicted to something a bit better, It's
exactly.
It's what life is. It's a stream of addictions. You're addicted to your work. You're addicted to everything. So was there any withdrawal or any sort of negative experience? Like, was there any barriers to you when you stopped using your phone and translated it into something that you're not necessarily used to, and you haven't necessarily found the pleasure in the new thing yet? Was it a difficult thing to get into?
I don't know, because it happened over quite a long period of time to where we are now. So I'm not really sure, because like I started like trying to read more consistently about this time last year. So it's been like a year in progress. So I'm not really sure on that, like kind of like if there was like withdrawals. I don't think so, because I like my intentionality on social media has been for quite a while now, since 2019. I think when I like done my first like 1 week off social media. Since then, it's kind of it was things have always been like developing. So I kind of like from then it's like I've not spent as much time on my phone. So I don't like. So it's like I don't think there was any withdrawals from my phone at all, really.
She didn't have like any, because yeah, in that sense, by making it like a slow adjustment, you didn't even notice the change. And I think that's a really good tactic to employ if you're gonna try and get yourself out of something. It's just like reduce the dosage of it, I guess. But yeah, I'm just interested because I know at first, like once you drop a very dopamine rich source out of your life, your body just craves it, and it's very, very, very hard to drop it. As I said, like it's literally 4 billion years of evolution, of evolutionary force just like pounding at you to go back to whatever it was. So I was just wondering if you had any negative experience at all.
Like I completely agree that like you have to fail loads of times before you can figure it out. Like since the first time of going off social media, I went back on it so many times. But then since failing and like going on there and like I've gone on less and less and less and less. It's like if you just like to make progress on something, I just believe you have to fail so many times. And then looking back, it's like one of those famous Steve Jobs quotes is like, you can't connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect them looking back. And it's so true. I've only like put this together of like, look, this progress has been made by looking backwards to what's happened. I wouldn't have seen that looking forwards to like what would happen in 1 or 2 years,
It kind of reminds me of I don't know if you know the scene from Harry Potter where Harry and Dumbledore are walking down that street, and he lights up every lamppost as he goes along. Yeah. And then right at the end, he looks back and sees like the whole thing that he's made. Kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's wrap. So thanks a lot for listening to this episode, everyone. Episode 14. Yeah, please like, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Drop us an email of any questions that you might have if you're listening to the end. Yeah, any other points?
No, I guess just follow social media. Yeah, and keep
even
watching
that we say.
and supporting. Yeah, exactly. We're using social media for its good sides, not for its bad sides. But yeah, no, thank you everyone for watching. Alex, it's been a pleasure. Lovely talking to you again.
Yeah, as always, Luke. Thanks a lot for listening, everyone, and we will see you in the next one.
Yeah. Bye, guys.